Having floating hands really freaks some people out. Now, there are many games that get away with it pretty well, but if you're like me, I'm the kind of person who likes to be as realistic as possible. So let's add some arms and a body to our floating hands. All right, just like last video, I'm going to copy and paste the realistic physics hands tutorial project and rename that to VR IK upper body, and then open up Unity Hub. Unity just released a 2020.3.1 long-term support version, so make sure you go and upgrade to that. Long-term support means it's stable, and they're going to support this obviously for a while, so this is a good version to update to. All right, now that this is installed, I'm going to go to projects and add that project that we copied and pasted, select folder, and then we're going to upgrade it to the new version and confirm. And there's a few things that we need to do to just upgrade to the newest version. So go into edit, project settings, go to XR plugin management and click on the exclamation point, fix all to lock the input. That'll fix that. And then let's go to window, package manager, and then make sure you're in Unity registry. And then we're gonna scroll down, and anything that has this little up arrow next to it needs to be updated. And XR Interaction Toolkit is actually to a 1.0 version. So that'll be out of preview very soon. It's technically out of preview now, but it still has that pre.3 tag at the moment. Once you update all of those, we should be good and set up for the new version. So let's go set up our scene. Go into the sample scene that we set up from the previous project. You're gonna have that grabbable cube and table, and I'm just gonna delete both of these. And the gizmos, I'm gonna take the 3D icons down to very small. This player that we set up last time, we're actually not going to use, so I'm going to uncheck it to disable it, but we are going to kind of replicate how the components are inside of here, so that's why we're leaving it in the project instead of just removing it completely. We're gonna come back and use it as a reference. And then let's bring our new character in. So I'm gonna go to package manager and my assets, and I've already downloaded a speedball character asset. It's free from the asset store. I'll put a link down in the description. So we're gonna import this guy. And of course, any humanoid character will work if you're following along with me. Just make sure they're, you know, human-like. So we're gonna go in here, grab that, drag it in, reset it to the center, and then I'm just gonna rename him to character. If we look inside of this package, you'll see we have a body, which is just the mesh, the visual component. So if we unchecked that, you can't see anything. And then we have the this BIP001 game object, and if we hold down Alt and press the arrow, it'll open up all the trees underneath, and we'll see that these are all the bones for this character. And we're going to be working with the hands, the head, and then eventually the feet when we get to that point. But trying to select the right bone from the tree and having to like go down and open each tree is kind of annoying and difficult. So we're going to import an animation rigging package from the package manager. I'm going to go to Unity registry and then look for animation rigging. And this just recently got a 1.0 version as well. Unity is finally getting to a place where things are more stable, and it's really exciting for me. Once that's installed, you'll see this tab up here at the top, and it gives us a few options. So if we select the character and then go up to animation rigging and click bone render setup, now we have this like bone skeleton that we can see from the outside of the character. So if we wanted to select the forearm now, we can just click on it and it selects the correct bone for us, and we don't have to navigate through this whole setup here, which is nice. And from here we can, you know, like you normally would, you can move objects and reposition the character's hands and whatnot. This is like how you would do animations and all that kind of stuff. You would keyframe each one and do animations and whatnot. But we want to do inverse kinematics, and then we want to match the target of the inverse kinematics up to the controllers. And that way, anywhere the controller goes, that's where we want the hand to go. And wherever the hand is, that's like, you know, the angle that the forearm is supposed to be to connect to the shoulder. So we have this kind of inverse relationship between the hand and all the bones connecting to that hand. So let's collapse this, and with the character still selected, we're going to go up to animation rigging again and click rig setup, and this will create a rig for us. And underneath this rig, we're going to create a left hand inverse kinematic, a right hand inverse kinematic, and a head inverse kinematic constraint. So right click and create an empty game object, and I'm going to name this one IK hand right, and then let's add a component to this, and this is going to be a 2 2-bone IK constraint component. And now the tip needs to be the hand. So I'm going to lock the inspector and then click on the right hand, and that'll select it for us in the hierarchy. So now we can just click and drag it over to the tip. And we could drag over the forearm, drag over the upper arm, create a target, create a hint, go through this whole process, or we could just right click on the top here and click on auto setup from tip transform. And that will automatically go through and add the connecting bones. And then it also creates a target and a hint for us underneath this game object. And all we have to do is line up the target and the hint with where we want them to be. So click on the target and then hold down shift, click on the hand, and then animation rigging up here at the top gives us this cool button where we can just click align transform and it'll reposition that for us. And we can do the same thing for the hint, hold down shift, click on the right forearm, animation rigging, align transform. And then the hint we actually want to be a little behind the elbow because the hint is telling Unity where the elbow should be pointing. So make sure you're just selecting hint, and then we're going to go back behind and drag it back a little bit. This will help if the player rotates their hand, your elbow, naturally repositions based on the rotation and based on the distance from your body. And this will help with orienting the elbow in the correct way. And now we're going to do the same thing real quick for the left hand. So right click, create a new game object, IK hand left. Going to unlock the inspector and then relock it. 2-bone IK constraint. Let's grab the left hand, drag that over to the tip, right click, auto setup from tip transform, and then we can click on the target, hold shift, click on the left hand, animation rigging, align transform, click on the hint, hold shift, click on the left forearm, animation rigging, align transform, and then make sure just hint is selected, and we can pull this back a little bit. And let's go ahead and test this. Before we do, I'm going to uncheck the XR rig and uncheck the XR interactor. Make sure you save, because at this point when I run it, I've had some issues with it crashing and I'm not 100% sure why yet. So just make sure you're saving frequently. And now if we go back to the inspector, grab the target and move it around, our hand should move. Nice. And you'll notice that as I get further away from the hand, it doesn't stretch to meet, it just kind of points in that direction, which is good. Now let's set up the head. So still inside of rig, right click, create a new empty game object. I'm gonna call this one IK head. And instead of a 2-bone constraint, inside of here, we're gonna have a multi-parent constraint. The constrained object is going to be the head. So let's lock the inspector, click on the head, that'll select it for us over there. And then we're gonna make a target just like the previous ones, IK head target. And just like the previous ones, we're going to select the target, hold down shift, select the head, and then animation rigging, align transform. And then let's drag the target over here into source object. And this is where things get a little interesting. This is where we add in the physicalized hands along with the character. So the way this is going to work is we're going to have the mesh hand that is visualized, and that is going to be tracking the target, and then the target is going to be the physicalized component. So the target's going to have the rigid body and all the colliders, and then the target is going to be following the controller using physics. So we have almost like a 3-tiered following approach. So we have the mesh hand that you can see, and then we have the physicalized hand, which is the target, and then we have the actual controller, which is the actual position of the player's hand. And so all of those are going to be working together to create a realistic visual and physical effect. So let's go into scripts and take the hand script, and I'm going to drag the hand script onto each hand target. And we're going to go through and mess with these values in here and delete the animator, because in a video in the not too distant future, I'm going to do a procedural grip, and that's going to override the last video where we did the animator stuff. So this procedural grip will be able to grab any object and it'll stop the fingers whenever it hits the surface. Still working on that, but we're just going to disable the animator for now because it doesn't really apply to this particular video. So let's open up the hand script. I'm going to do 2 things in here. I'm going to go through and comment out all of the animator stuff, and then we're going to fix the hand tracking a little bit, because in the last video I was adding the offset in local space instead of world space, and that was kind of creating a weird pivot effect where your hand wouldn't pivot on the correct point. So we're going to go through and fix that. First, let's comment out all of the animator stuff. So comment out the require animator component. I'm going to highlight this chunk of animation variables, press Ctrl K and C, and that'll comment out the whole block. And then the same thing for the start method, and then the update method, and then each one of the methods below. There we go. And then here on line 59, this is where we need to set it to a world position. And in order to do that, we're going to do follow target dot transform point, and that'll transform from a local space to world space. And then we're going to put the position offset inside of that method. And that should fix the rotation pivot point problem that some of y'all have been experiencing. Make sure to save that. We're going to go into hand controller now, and you'll see down here in the update method, we no longer have a set grip or set trigger method. So I'm going to comment both of those out as well. At this point, realistically, you could just delete the hand controller method. We're not using it at the moment. Make sure to save both of those. I'm going to go back into Unity. We're going to create a new C# script. This one's going to be called head, and head is going to be attached to the IK head target. And let's open this guy up. Similar to the hand controllers, in this controller, we're going to update the head to follow the head mounted display that the player has, but we don't want physics to be involved in this. We're just going to have it instantly update. So we're going to do that. And then we're also going to update the whole body rotation based off of the head in this class as well. We're going to need a few serialized field variables, 2 transforms, a root object. This is going to be the character. And then we need a follow object. And this is going to be the head mounted display. And I can declare both variables without having to write the line twice by just doing comma the next variable, as long as they're the same type. And then we're going to do the same thing for serialized field private vector 3. We're going to have a position offset and a rotation offset. There we go. And then we're going to need 1 private variable. This is going to be a private vector 3, and this is going to be a head body offset. And the head body offset can be set inside of the start method, and that's just going to be the difference from the root object position and the follow object position. So in this case, I think the actual position of the character is in the center, and then the follow object position is going to be obviously wherever the head mounted display is, and so this just accounts for that difference and will automatically set it for us. And then we're going to change this update to a late update. And first we're going to set up the root object position. So we're going to set the body, and that's going to be equal to the transform position plus the head body offset. And then we're going to do root object dot forward is going to be equal to a vector 3 dot project on plane. And then we're going to use the follow object dot up and a vector 3 dot up. And that's going to be normalized. So this accounts for the offset between the head mounted display and the body, and will essentially set us to the correct height. And then this guy will set the correct rotation for wherever the head is pointing. That's also where the body is going to be pointing. And now we can set the offsets for the camera. So let's do transform position is going to be equal to follow object dot transform point, just like we did over in the hand class. And we're going to put the position offset in here. And then we do the rotation offset. Transform rotation is going to be equal to follow object dot rotation multiplied by a quaternion Euler rotation offset. Make sure to save, and let's go back to Unity and set up all these values. So inside the head target, the root object is going to be the character, the follow object is going to be the XR rig, which we can re-enable, and the main camera is going to be the follow object. And then if we go up to the hand targets, we can set the follow objects for those. So the left hand target follow object is going to be the left hand controller, and the right hand target follow object is going to be the right hand controller. Make sure to save. And now that the animator has been disabled, we can also remove those from the hand targets. And now all that's left is to run it, and let's set the offsets. Oh, and we forgot to add the physicalized hand part. So go into your right hand target, and we're going to add a rigid body. Make sure to set to interpolate and continuous, and don't use gravity. Same thing for the left hand. And then underneath each of these, we can create a new game object, and this is going to be the collider. Let's add a box collider here so we can resize and reposition that, and you can add as complex colliders as you would like. And I'm going to duplicate this and drop it into the left hand as well. Reset the transform and then reposition that. So the head body offset auto setting is giving me a little bit of trouble, so we're going to go back into head. So instead of having this start method here, I'm just going to delete the whole start method and going to put the head body offset in with the other serialized vector 3s and rename it without the underscore. And now we can manually set it. it, and we won't have any issues. There you have it. Now, obviously the legs look kind of weird, just floating around, being stiff and straight. So if you want to just get rid of those, you can find the legs inside of the bone structure and scale those down to 0 so that they disappear and you're just having a torso and arms and hands. In an upcoming video, we're going to work on procedurally walking and having those legs animate, but for now, you're just a floating body. I want to give a super special shout out to our newest VIP Patreon, Scott. Thanks so much for joining us, and I really appreciate your support. And to you, Ava, Jane, Tim, and Austin, thank you so much for all of your support. And I'm thinking instead of a live stream this month, we're going to be doing a private Zoom call on this coming Sunday. So be on the lookout on Patreon for that. The time, details, and the link for that will all be up there. And if you're not part of the VIP tier and want to get in on a private Zoom call with me this Sunday, be sure to sign up on Patreon. Or if you just want the source project and all the code that goes with it, you can support me on Patreon and get that as well. And free of charge, as usual, I'm always in the comments, so if you ever run into bugs or issues or improvements or thoughts that you have, be sure to write a comment and I will respond. I respond to every single one. I love hearing from you guys, and honestly, all of you, thanks so much for the likes, the comments, the support. The amount that this channel has grown in the last month has been absolutely ridiculous. I'm so appreciative of all of you, and I will see you in the next video.